Welcome to the Gifts Differing podcast. I'm host Albion, and today we've got Elysia in the studio, an INTP philosopher, and Sebastien, the Christian who featured in Episode 2, The First Cause Argument. We're going to dive into a deep discussion today on Stoic philosophy, particularly their view of God as logos. So, to begin, I'll throw this quote your way. The Stoics believed in a God, but a material God that is immanent in nature itself, similar to pantheism. They thought the order and regularity of nature must come from some underlying intelligence, which they called logos. So, Elysia, let's start with you. What do you think of the Stoics' view of God as logos?
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. The Stoic view of God isn't like the personal, interventionist God we often talk about in religious traditions, but more like an intelligent force or principle embedded in the fabric of nature itself. They believed that everything in the universe has a reason, an order, and that order comes from this underlying intelligence, logos. I find this intriguing because it aligns with a lot of modern philosophical views that look at the universe as a kind of rational system. I mean, there's a deep, almost mathematical order to nature, and for the Stoics, this order points to some kind of divine reason or logic that is permeated by everything.
I think it's a fascinating idea, Elysia. The Stoics, like you said, were proposing a kind of God that is immanent, one that is present in everything, embedded in the very structure of reality. What strikes me about their view is that they saw the world as inherently rational and ordered, and logos was the organizing principle behind all of that. It's almost like the Stoics were anticipating modern physics in a way. There's a sense that the laws of nature, the way the universe operates, is governed by something rational, even though we may not be able to directly see or comprehend the entirety of that rationality. They weren't saying that God is a personal, intervening figure, but that the rational structure of existence itself points to something divine. It's almost like they saw the universe as a manifestation of logos itself.
Right, and I think that's where the beauty of it lies. It's not just some abstract force, but it's also a rational force. The Stoics believed that by living in harmony with logos, we could live virtuous lives, aligning our will with the natural order. It's like they saw virtue as following the laws of the universe, in a way. And this brings me to an interesting point. In a sense, it could be argued that the Stoics were offering a very intellectualized, even existential form of religion. They didn't need a personal God to derive meaning. They looked to the universe itself as the source of meaning. For me, there's something compelling about the idea that the intelligence or the reasoning behind everything could be seen as sacred, as divine.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's a rational framework that also has moral implications. And I think this is one of the major differences between the Stoic understanding of God and some of the more personal, interventionist views, because there's no separation between the sacred and material. For the Stoics, the material world wasn't meant to be a place of corruption or sin, but it was meant to be a place where divine reason can manifest, a place where we have to learn to align ourselves with that divine order. In a way, they believed that living virtuously meant coming into greater harmony with logos, which is embedded in the structure of the universe. And I think, from a psychological perspective, there's something powerful about that idea, because it aligns human purpose with the very fabric of existence. And there's a kind of existential security in knowing that, regardless of the chaos around us, there's a structure, an order, that is universal.
Exactly, Sebastien. It's almost as if the Stoics were suggesting that our human suffering and chaos are the result of not living in alignment with logos. And this is where the intellectual beauty of the Stoic view comes in. There's no need to appeal to a God that intervenes or rewards us. Instead, if we act according to the rational principles embedded in the world, we can bring ourselves closer to understanding what's right, what's good, and what's true. There's an intellectual freedom there, in the sense that you don't need to rely on an external, personal deity. You are connected to the divine by virtue of the universe itself, and that's a pretty profound concept.
Yes, and I think what's fascinating about the Stoic view of logos is that it also requires a form of responsibility. The Stoics were essentially saying that the universe operates according to a rational order, and it's our job as humans to recognize that order and align ourselves with it. There's an inherent moral responsibility in that recognition. You could argue that logos is, by coming into harmony with the rational structure of the universe, we also come into alignment with what is morally right. It's not just about understanding the mechanics of the universe. It's about understanding how to live within that universe in a way that is in accordance with its deeper purpose.
Right. And I think what's interesting here is that the Stoics essentially replaced the idea of an interventionist God with something far more subtle and universal. It's like, instead of having a personal deity who rewards or punishes us, they place the burden of understanding and engaging with the divine on the individual. It's a more existential approach. Meaning isn't just handed to us. We have to find it in the rationality of the universe. And I think that's very empowering. If you believe that everything has an order, then you're not completely at the mercy of external forces. You have the power to align yourself with that order. There's a kind of intellectual freedom there, a recognition that your actions, your decisions, are tied to something larger than oneself.
Yes, there's a sense of agency in the Stoic worldview, which I think is essential. They didn't make people passive recipients of divine intervention. Instead, they empowered individuals to recognize their own responsibility in relation to the rational order of the cosmos. The Stoic idea of logos suggests that there's always something to strive toward, some higher principle to align yourself with. This isn't just about passive understanding or contemplation. It's about active engagement with the world in a meaningful way. You could say that logos is the structure of meaning, and your task as a human being is to recognize and live in accordance with it. It's not just about being obedient, it's about realizing you are an active participant in the ongoing creation and discovery of meaning.
Exactly. It's not enough to simply understand that order exists. You have to engage with it. And in that sense, the Stoic approach to God, this immanent logos, actually offers a deeply empowering framework. You can't simply wait for some external force to rescue you. You have to take responsibility for aligning your life with the universal principles that govern existence. In many ways, I think the Stoics were offering a form of transcendence through intellectual and moral alignment rather than divine intervention.
That's really interesting. It's like the Stoics were trying to show that connecting to the divine doesn't need to come from some personal God who steps in and fixes things. It's about understanding that the universe has a deeper order, rational structure, and that we can find meaning by aligning with that. And that's empowering. It puts the onus on us to be part of that bigger picture. It's a more active, engaged form of spirituality.
Exactly, Sebastien. And that idea of taking responsibility for aligning your actions with the fundamental structure of existence is both psychologically powerful and morally compelling. It offers a way for individuals to find meaning without resorting to external sources of validation. In a sense, the Stoic worldview is deeply existential. It's not about passive faith in God, but rather, it's about recognizing that the divine is already embedded in the structure of the universe, and that it's our responsibility to live in accordance with that order. And that's what makes it such a unique and compelling philosophy. It's a philosophy that emphasizes the power of human agency within a larger, rational framework. You can't simply surrender to fate. You must understand it, confront it, and align yourself with it. In doing so, you find your place in the universe, and perhaps your connection to the divine.
Wow, guys, that's a lot to chew on. The Stoic concept of logos really redefines how we think about God, meaning, and our place in the universe. It's not about waiting for divine intervention. It's about finding your purpose in the very structure of reality. Thank you, both, for this amazing discussion.
Thanks, Albion. It was a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Albion. It's been great to be here.
Thanks to Elysia and Sebastien for such an insightful discussion. That's a wrap. And as always, thanks to you for tuning in. Keep questioning, keep thinking, and I'll catch you next time.